reach out to the
We
chair.
are live. We are live.
Send me there.
Okay, this is Senate Finance. And we are meeting early today. And for anyone watching at home or eating lunch, because we got off the floor 10 minutes ago. Because the BAA has come to us under Rule 31. We did not take the BAA in originally because there was just a continuation of a $2 increase in the marriage license fee that goes to domestic violence. That is our section. I hope that we can get testimony on that section and vote it out of here and get it back upstairs.
Sure.
Come on up, Chris.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Chris, Joint Fiscal. My presentation will not take much of the committee's time today. The bill H49 is the FY25 Budget Adjustment Act. As the chair reminded everybody, the first go around of the BAA, the committee waived its jurisdiction of the bill, and I came in and gave you all a high level of the two real sections that pertain to this committee's jurisdiction. Neither of those have changed in this latest iteration. Section 59 on page 43 contains some language to bump out the effective dates on the repeal of the telephone personal property tax by a year. That language is exactly the same in this bill. It was requested by the tax department because they needed a little more time to bring a contractor on to do some of the more complicated valuation work of putting some of that communications property on the grand list. So you'll see that again in section 59 of this bill. There are no changes to the language from what you all saw when we passed the BAA previously. The second piece is section 86 on page 69, has to do with marriage license fees. And as the chair mentioned, a few years ago, it was 2 years ago, you all passed a $20 increase in marriage license fees, dedicated $15 of that increase to the Domestic and Sexual Violence Special Fund, the other $5 of the increase to town clerks. That had a 2-year, that had a prospective repeal or a sunset on 2 years, which ends at the end of this fiscal year. So the BAA contains, I think it's 2 sentences that strike out that sunset to maintain the licenses at their current fee levels beyond the end of the current fiscal year. So it doesn't increase fees. It just maintains status quo. Absent that language passing in some form this year, marriage license fees are going to go back from $80 to $60. The Domestic and Sexual Violence Special Fund will lose $15 of that, which equates to about $72,000 a year. And the town clerk statewide would lose the $5, which equates to a little over $20,000, which is not real big to any one town, but it is, it could be significant to the Domestic and Sexual Violence Special Fund. So those are the two revenue related things that were in the BAA. If you all would like to hear any more about what is different between this iteration of the BAA and the prior one that you all voted on, my colleague Emily can come up and walk you through that.
I believe that's all in the jurisdiction of the pros. This was the only thing that the committee had jurisdiction over.
Yeah, there were no changes to any of the things that this committee has jurisdiction over. The only changes that happened between the various iterations were on the appropriation side.
Okay. The committee, what's your pleasure?
Make a motion. Is that what we need to approve it and move it along?
Yeah.
I would move approval as it came to us to vote to approve the BAA. Is that all you need?
That's all I need. Okay, I have a motion from Senator Hardy to, she is presenting a bill in the House. I'm not sure where. If you know where, yeah, we can bring her down. Okay.
May I return to the cheap seats, Madam Chair?
Pardon?
May I return to the cheap seats?
Sure, you
Those are
can.
the expensive
That was more
seats.
comfortable.
These are the cheap seats.
Sure.
They've gone to get senators who look at parents be asked to be notified when we're going to vote.
Since we have time, we have to say something. So we have time to say something.
You can say something.
Great.
Yeah.
So I think this is a very contentious issue and it's a political theater at this point. I just want you to know that I like to compromise. And so I've had interesting conversations today. Just asking since this is likely to come to Senate Finance, if there's anything left that we could do in order to get to a place that the governor could agree to and that a majority of both chambers would. So I have been in some conversations about language that might still protect the most vulnerable from being unhoused next Monday. But after floating those options with a variety of individuals in leadership as well as elsewhere, I don't see any possible path for that amendment to be possibly could be considered. So I'm not going to be introducing anything, and I totally sense that that would be outside of our jurisdiction, and we're just going to move this bill along because it has a marriage fee as well as another fee that makes it jurisdictional to this committee.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move it along, and that's where I am on this. It's
Okay.
just feeling the dead air on YouTube right now.
Okay. We are waiting for Senator Dean substitute, because I don't know. And we will, we'll wait, and then we're going for the rest of the day. I thought it was supposed to rain this afternoon.
I think our amendment on the floor today.
If are we on a small pause?
We are on a small pause.
Room to get my computer.
Oh, yeah, I know, let her there. Senator Goulart was presenting a bill.
Yeah, I just texted her as well. To tell her.
Okay, so she should be down momentarily. We'll take the vote. And then we're going to do the DFR housekeeping. And as part of that, we have 129 on the wall. That was a an attempt that I put that in. It's in under my name. It was a constituent service from the Bitcoin kiosk industry for proposal for regulation. I told them I've sent it over to DFR. I have no pride in ownership, and if DFR doesn't approve, I'm no sense taking it up because it's an asked bill, but I have asked them to talk about it.
Which bill?
Then we have DFR housekeeping. We're gonna do a walkthrough next. And
That H 137 or?
no, it is, yes, H 137. So we're gonna walk through that. I have S 129, I just said. I know last year when we did the housekeeping, they were trying to find some compromise in how you regulate kiosks and Bitcoin. And this is the industry's proposal. I told them I'd put it in, but it's subject to DFR saying, yeah, that works. So
Got it.
that is what, and then we're gonna do 398, which is FIDA, and I don't know what that is. But
This is the calm before the storm.
we're
Like
waiting,
literally.
we're waiting for
Because it's either.
Secretary Atkinson's gone to get her.
Still going to be our midnight Madam Chair.
No, that didn't work.
That debate was almost outside of the parameters of the question on the floor. If somebody had raised the concern about discussion or debate on topics outside of the rule suspension, would the presiding officer, Lieutenant Governor, would have had to rein in the conversation?
It would depend on a ruling. It would be, I think it would be, was it germane? And I'm not sure how the Secretary of the Senate would opine. It would be announced by the, and he doesn't have to listen to the Secretary of the Senate, but I've never known anyone not to listen to the Secretary of the Senate.
Who's the secretary before Bloomberg?
Bloomer.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Is he good?
Tom Gibson, no. The Gibson family, former governor Ernest Gibson was a Supreme Court justice. Like the Bloomers, they're an old Vermont political family.
Oh, I shouldn't say this because you're still live, but Secretary Bloomer successfully kicked me out of the chamber once last year for passing a note to Senator Kitchell.
During.
But he
During
didn't
a vote.
catch the 50 other.
He has very sharp eyes.
Since it's germane to this topic, is there concern from rating agencies if the BAA gets vetoed twice? Not that we have any control over that. I'm just kind of curious if that's a topic that's come up before.
It has come up in some of my conversations with other entities in state government. That there is concern that if we can't find agreement on BAA, it doesn't look very favorably on our ability to manage our finances.
Do you know precedent where that's considered by in other states and that's actually affected their rating?
I don't offhand, but I know that our fiscal management is something that we get the highest possible marks on by our rating agencies, and our ability to sort of work together and do reserves and our regular budget true up through the BAA are consistently cited as positive factors that work in our favor, that reinforce that image that Vermont does well on fiscal management. So anything that sort of, it's one of those things where there are things that are within our control and things that aren't. And like demographics are not within our control, fiscal management is. So sometimes it's important to be focused on doubling down on the things that we are really good at.
I take your
Can
point.
control.
Prior to 15 minutes ago, I had never contemplated that as a factor in this discussion. So I just hope that everybody is aware that it is truly going to affect our rating. We might well consider that as we look at the budget.
We should always, at the very least, assume that there are analysts at the rating agencies that are watching us all the time when we're debating things like this and how we manage our long-term liabilities and things like that. So the conversation never stays within the room.
But from my understanding though, is that the biggest factor is the fact that we always balance the budget. We're, I think, the only state, if I'm not, if my memory serves me, that doesn't either require from the Constitution or otherwise to do a balanced budget at the end of the fiscal year. And we always balance our budget regardless of which part is in charge. That's the thing that has been very powerful to the rating agencies in the past.
And as you know, Senator, there are many, yes, you're absolutely right. We're the only one that doesn't have a legal requirement. And as you know, many states that do have the legal requirement doesn't always mean that they truly balance their budget in practice. But that is also cited in our favor. Our reserve practices, our small c conservative fiscal management. We don't take a lot of risk as a state. We can't really afford to take a lot of risk as a state, given our demographic profile.
You heard back from our team?
I have not.
I heard that, Ashley just texted me that she's in the witness chair right now, so Ashley is waiting.
It's gotta be the doula or the.
Is she, there she is.
There she is, okay. Your house, birthing center, yeah. Senator Chittenden,
So I think Senator Harding made the motion, but I'm happy.
Senator Harding made
I made
a
a
motion
motion,
that
yeah.
we approve BAA as it was sent to us. The only thing in our jurisdiction, and there have been no changes, is we put off telephone. Last year, we had a lot of discussion about treating utility property as real property. This puts that off for a year because then we knew when we did it, they weren't sure how long they'd take us over tax or property valuation. This puts it off for a year and it just continues. It's a $20 increase in the marriage license fee that goes to fund victim services. That's the extent of our jurisdiction in this one. So I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna see, is there any further discussion? If not, we're call roll.
Senator Chitnick,
Yeah.
Senator Broad,
No.
Senator Hardy,
Yes.
Senator Beck,
No.
Senator Hewlett,
Yes. Good job.
Senator Matos, no, Senator Cummings.
Yes.
4-3-0.
Senator Hardy, would you like to just report
Sure.
that?
All I have to do is talk about those two things. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
There were no changes. Okay, we have 10 whole minutes before our next set of witnesses are here.
All right, so I'm gonna grab a bite.
Yeah. Take a 10-minute break.
Yeah, I'm done.
Senator Hardy can
It's done.
We're taking a break.